How's it going, everyone? I'm Vivi and welcome back to another Sly Cooper theory slash discussion video, I guess. Now, have any of you ever wondered about Sly's grandparents, especially from his father's side? Sure, we ask the same thing when it comes to his other ancestors, right? But what got me so interested with his grandparents, from his father's side especially, it's the possibility of them actually being alive. Have you ever thought of that idea? Now, we don't know how old Connor was when Sly was born, but according to the Sly Cooper timeline, which you can find on the Wikia page, it is assumed that Connor was born around the 1950s. Now, all of these dates that you notice on screen, they're just assumptions. Anyways, let's pretend he was born in 1950. Let's go with that idea. Sly was 18 years old in the first game. When he was 8 years old, the Fiendish Five attacked. That was 10 years ago. The first game got released in 2002. If we go with that timeline, that means the night of the attack happened back in 1992. So if that is true, then Connor was perhaps in his 40s when he died. He died young, right? Sure, he looks older in Sly 4 if we look at his model, but I never saw that as official. Now, like I've said plenty of times, I want the future of the series to be more story-driven, as in have a more deeper story. Something that could deeply involve Sly's family. And the thing about the Sly Cooper series, about these unanswered questions, one they should answer is more about his parents, perhaps. These villains, Le Paradox, Clockwerk, hating on his ancestors, hating his father, Dr. M for example. Okay, you didn't like his parents or ancestors, but for what reason, right? Okay, yes, Le Paradox did explain why he hated Sly's father, but other than that, what about Dr. M? Especially Clockwerk. Okay, he wanted to be known the greatest thief alive. Okay, he left Sly alive just to prove that the Coopers were nothing without the book, but I always thought that there's more to it. They need to dive deeper into that lore, and they could easily make a bunch of games just by doing that. Sure, Dr. M talked about Sly's father just a bit, but that's not enough. We need more. And think of this, how are they gonna continue the series without making it too repetitive? The game's always mainly focusing on the Cooper gang and their missions. Why not introduce something new? Why not add in a bit more background to actually understand why the villains felt that way? All they did was talk. One way they could easily expand the story is the possibility of having a family member who was against thieving. And one example I've been thinking of is Sly's grandmother. Now, before jumping into that question, do we actually know anything about Sly's grandparents? Any of them? Grandmothers? No. Grandpa? Yes. It is assumed that Bruce Cooper is Sly's grandfather. If Connor was born in 1950, and Connor's father was perhaps in his 20s or 30s, we can say that Bruce Cooper was born in 1920, at the earliest. Now guys, look, Sly was 22 maybe in Sly Cooper 4. That game came out in 2013. Sly is not 30 years old in Sly 4. Keep that in mind. Okay, Sly Cooper 1 was released in 2002. He was 18. Sly Cooper 3 was released in 2005. He was 21. That might make you think, oh, okay, Sly 4 got released 8 years later. That means Sly could be 30 in Sly 4. No, I don't think so. So if we go with that idea in mind, Sly's grandfather could be in his 80s. If he's born in 1920, 2002, that makes him 82 years old. Add 3 or 4 years to that, you get 86 years old. In his 80s pretty much. So he could still be alive and well somewhere. Same goes for his grandmother. She could be alive and well, living somewhere, right? But the question is, if they are alive, why were they kept hidden? I've had one idea in mind. One of them could have died from some sort of sickness. Or perhaps another reason, we don't know. And the other remains alive. One interesting thing they could do is have the grandma be alive. And she could explain what Sly's grandfather was like. She could even tell Sly that she was against what his grandfather was doing, thieving and all that. She didn't want his son Connor to become a thief. Okay, why get married in the first place knowing Bruce Coop's thieving reputation? Well, Bruce, let's say when Connor was born, he slowly started getting into thieving again. He was teaching it to his son. Before his son was born, he had forgotten about it. I keep saying Bruce Coop. How sure are we that he is Sly's grandfather? Apart from the timeline on Wikia, what proves? What could explain that he is Sly's grandfather? The fact that he was the expert hacker in the family line. Let's just say that technology comes late into the timeline, so Bruce O'Coop is simply assumed. And also in Sly Cooper 3 in the vault, in the final part, before walking on the lasers, there's a computer. We can perhaps say that Connor learned how to hack, how to use computers from his father, Bruce being the one who was the expert hacker. Voila. And what if Connor treated his father badly? What if he was someone who disrespected his father? Sure, he was following his footsteps, but he could have been a very stubborn child. And also that could be a hint that Dr. M was perhaps right about Connor, that he wasn't a good friend. Okay, how is this going to be a hint exactly? Well, if they don't want to focus too much on the grandparents, why not introduce Sly's grandmother as a way of introducing a prequel? Now a prequel, I will leave that for a future video. It's a complete different subject, but I did want to mention the idea. Quick scenario, Sly finds his grandmother and she starts talking about Connor, what he was like, what he did. She probably knew a lot about her son. Well, of course she knows about her son Connor. She's his mother, but I'm talking about his thieving adventures. Okay, why didn't Sly know his grandfather Bruce? We can say Connor didn't like him and he just made a bunch of lies just to have Sly not meet him. Or perhaps he died before Sly was born. Okay, now what about Sly's grandmother? Where was she this whole time, assuming she's alive? She could be in a retirement home, somewhere far away from Paris. If that is true, why not try and contact her grandson? While maybe, like I said, she moved far away, and after Bruce died, she spent all her money on herself. We don't really know what kind of person she was. As she got older, she simply couldn't afford to travel. Or we can say that Connor sent her away because Connor knew that Clockwerk was watching them. He knew she was vulnerable, especially with Bruce being gone. Anyways, with that being said, if they do decide to implement the grandparents in some sort of way, is it going to be in Sly Cooper 5? I doubt it. Perhaps it's going to be left for future games. Like I said, maybe they might get introduced in a prequel. I'll talk about that in the future. But anyways guys, thanks for watching the video. Now, in the comment section, tell me what you think about the idea of introducing Sly's grandparents. Like mentioned in the video, the villains, they hated the Coopers. Sure, they talked, but that's all they did. We never got actual cutscenes, and I feel like the team should explore some of that in the future. Now, do you think that his parents are actually still alive? If so, come up with a small scenario. For example, why were they kept hidden this whole time? What makes them suddenly show up in the story? Stuff like that pretty much, nothing too complicated. But yeah, as usual, thanks for all the support, and I've been Vivi, and until next time.